Yeah.
Thank you everyone for coming to the Hong Kong Democracy Movement. 香港民主運動歡迎大家。Today we are really happy that we have like a professional a real lawyer that a licensed lawyer, should I say that, right, Red?
Yeah.
Okay, so he is here to discuss about like the Hong Kong passport holder for like immigration to Australia, right?
Correct.
Okay, so let me pass you the stage right now. You can just go ahead and discuss whatever. And I know that we don't have much audience here today, since we are still like too early in Hong Kong. And you know what, Red? Occasionally I might have a good chance to like explain your things in Cantonese because we are recording and then we want to share this to the Hong Kongers in Hong Kong. So, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I
go ahead.
will speak slowly, and at any stage, if you want to stop me, feel free to do so. My name is Reid. I'm based in Sydney of Australia. I'm a graduate of Sydney University. I have practiced migration law for the past decade, and I have helped people from all walks of life and from all over the world to come to Australia to settle down. My clients are usually from countries in Asia, including mainland China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. Indonesia is a big market. And also we have clients from Europe, Germany, UK, and occasionally we have clients from USA as well, funny enough. So today we're not going to discuss any personal issue because we have to be careful about our confidentiality obligation. If we have any personal issue to discuss, we will do that at a later stage after the seminar. You can contact me through the host today. So far, any questions? Is that clear enough?
Oh yes. Yes. By the way, I heard it from Jason before that you help Hong Kongers after the 2019 protests. And would you like to start there? Like, what kind of options if they want to go to like Australia?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, these our assistance and our professional feedback in response to the political turbulence, put it this way, in Hong Kong over the past few years, is based on a media statement made by the current Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, in July 2020. So in that particular announcement, the Prime Minister of Australia introduced a few options to the Hong Kong passport holders in Australia and in Hong Kong, that they will have a few options available for them to come to Australia to settle down either temporarily or permanently. So whether they are members of any particular society or they have taken part in the so-called democratic movement, they can consider these options. Well, because from a legal point of view, it is very hard to distinguish people from different political parties or any put it this way. Does that make sense?
Or would I describe as what is their political preference? Would
Yeah,
that? Yep. Okay. Yeah. Go
political
ahead.
preference.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in terms of political preference, there is no doubt that Hong Kong, under the previous common law system, even now Hong Kong is still a common law country. We share the same legal system. which is what we call a Westminster system. The government of Hong Kong, similar to the government of Australia, was a responsible government and representative government, meaning it is a democratic country. In that sense, in every aspect, the politicians and the government of Australia will support the demographic opinions that put forward by the Hong Kong people.
Okay. Reid, can I actually would like to stop you a little bit here and let me ask Jason a little bit first. Okay, Jason，請問你喺唔喺度？唔該你。
喺度。
係嗱，就頭先朱律師就有講啦，其實而家澳洲就自從香港嗰個抗爭之後啦，就叫開咗個方便之門俾香港人係咪？咁佢就話而家就係去到一個環境就係話唔理或者唔係咁注重你嘅政治取態，都可以俾香港人留低嘅係咪？可唔可以咁講？
暫時喺佢哋法律嘅系統上嚟講咧，只係香港個護照咧都係可以咁樣申請嘅。咁但係咧
，OK 係，請繼續。
係
你講。
但係你要成個法律系統嘅話，其實你都係要問翻阿 Reid，咁佢係點樣？即係你申請係咁樣申請嘅。咁但係咧，你移民局去點樣去做過濾咧？係移民局佢會有一個方法去過濾，即係話 OK 你係藍絲嘅，即係好藍嘅。有啲咩證據咁證明嘅，咁人哋可能會有辦法可以過濾咗嗰啲人出去，咁喺申請嘅時候就會過濾到出去，亦或者佢入到嚟，咁我哋澳洲會有另外嘅立法，就好似而家英國咁，有專門嘅反恐法啊，2006應該2006咩
？Maybe I should clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Maybe I should clarify. Okay.
Yes,
so put it this way, the Australian government's declaration of assistance for Hong Kong people to migrate to Australia is in response to the political movement in the last few years that we see in Hong Kong. However, this particular visa scheme or the visa options that I'm going to discuss, does not distinguish people from with different political tendency. So whether you are pro Hong Kong government or against Hong Kong government, it is difficult for Australian law to distinguish them. However,
okay,
okay, and it is easy. So, it is not easy to distinguish them, and it is always up to the particular applicant to make announcement, make declaration of their particular political tendency. So it is not easy for the government, Australian government, to distinguish, and therefore, the visa options available to them do not distinguish as per their political grounds, political positions. But it would be interesting because we would assume most applicants who wish to migrate to other countries, to democratic countries, including UK, America, Canada, and Australia, are the people who do not want to stay in Hong Kong because of the political change. So the change of the policy reflects people's plan to come to Australia. However, it does not distinguish substantially people's different political views. Does that make sense?
So in that case, like, if I'm like pro-government and I can still apply to like immigrate to Australia in that case, right? Isn't it?
That's correct.
And it is up to them to distinguish like, if I am like pro-government or pro-democracy. So it is
that is
totally,
correct.
Okay, sure. Okay. So
that is correct.
in general, they are not biased on like the political preference or tendency for the applicants to announce that, hey, if I'm. But so what is the safeguard for the Australia government to, in case that, you know, the China infiltration has been going so strong the last like decade already, you know,
That's right. That's
in that
right.
case, and how can they protect themselves that has like even more um like infiltrations, like what we so called the the CCP troll to go into
Yeah,
Australia. Okay.
the national security law.
Yep. Okay. So yes, go ahead. And so what are the options for the Hong Kongers to like apply for
Yeah,
the immigration to like Australia?
sure. Okay. So regardless, I'm going to discuss the available options for Hong Kong people to consider, regardless of their political view. And then in the latter half of the speech, I will probably talk about, in particular, people who suffer from persecution or potential harm from the government, and what can they do? Okay, so there are two parts of this speech. So the first part, put it this way, is for people not just in Hong Kong, mainly in Hong Kong, but all over the world to consider. So in general, the Australian migration system consists of a few parts. The first part is the skill migration. The second part is the business and investment migration. The third part is family reunion. And the fourth part is the humanitarian program. So when we in the next part of the speech, when we talk about the safe haven, put it this way, for people who potentially suffer from harms incurred by the government, we are probably talking about a particular category under the humanitarian program. So for the skill migration, business investment, and family reunion, these are universal. The political tendency or views would not be a factor of consideration, of the legal consideration. Mainly, they consider different aspects of the applicant, namely skills, qualifications, work experience, level of English, if they have any potential family members in Australia, partners or parents or children, and then if they, wish to come to Australia to invest. That's a large topic. We will talk about it later. As much as Australian government wishes to protect people, vulnerable people from different jurisdictions, they still work in the best interest of Australia. So it has taken the government a long time to prepare the law. You've probably seen some inconsistency. Initially, back in July last year, the government says we will protect Hong Kong people. We will provide safe haven visa to people in Hong Kong who want to come to Australia. Later on, they changed the topic. They changed the view, in the sense that they say, "Oh no, we're not going to provide safe haven visa. What we will do is we will bring talented and wealthy people from Hong Kong to contribute to Australian economy." Right? So I do apologize for that inconsistency, even though we didn't initiate that inconsistency. But you can see every government works in the best interest of themselves rather than the other way around. Do I make myself clear in that sense?
Okay, yes, and let me try to like ask question to Jason, and let me explain in Cantonese first. Jason 喺唔喺
Sure.
度？係，咁呢一個
係
佢所講嘅呢個skill migration 係咪？係咪就係你上一
係
次所講嗰個482嗰個skill shortage
啊
嗰個
450啊，
450定482啊
450，因為你
485.
skill
？485，OK，sorry，呢個
yeah
係
skill migration
450，
is based on educational
係
regarding on the VET such as TAFE
嗯
or diploma education and also higher education such as bachelor degree, master degree or even PhD degree. That's called skill migration. And working experience migration, let's say working visa, is I think it's 482 temporary working visa。
講485先啦，咁呢個就係上次所講嘅就係你話係一個student visa 係可以留喺度做嘢嘅，咁係咪話就係話喺度做有 diploma 或以上啦？咁加多1至2年嘅時間，加埋呢個係咪叫Hong Kong Stream 啊？係嘛
？Yeah，Hong Kong Stream。Hong
Kong Stream。咁然之後就4至5年就成為呢個 permanent resident 㗎啦 ，PR 㗎啦。
That's correct.
Okay. So 呢個就係
Can I?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Can I just elaborate on that particular topic?
Okay, good.
I appreciate you've got some preliminary knowledge of that. It will be easier for me to expand on the topic. So let's just use a real life scenario. For example, if we have a Hong Kong resident aged 25, for example, who has worked in the hospitality industry, worked as a chef or a cook or even a customer service, even a waiter for last 5 years, whatever. And then he or she, just say he, approached you or us saying, oh, I want to migrate to Australia. So we will say, do you speak basic English? They go, yeah. If I spend more time in Australia studying English, maybe I can speak better English. Then we will say to them, right, what you can do is consider coming to Australia, study 2 years at TAFE or even any private college in Sydney, Melbourne, Gold Coast. You study 2 years, and then you can apply for 485, which we just mentioned. Normally, if American or Chinese people study 485, they can only get a 2-year visa without a pathway to PR. But for Hong Kong people, you can apply for a 5-year visa after studying for 2 years. And then within the 5 years, you can apply for PR without any particular legal obstacle. So when we talk about the applications, we need to distinguish you can get and you can apply, because we don't want to give people this impression that they can automatically get or be granted something. They need to apply, but the requirement are the focus of our practitioners. So we need to look at any particular requirement they need to fulfill. For example, for a Chinese student, they would need to have IELTS, they would need to have work experience to apply for PR, but for Hong Kong applicant, they don't need to. So for this particular person who is age 25, male, who has worked as a cook for the last 5 years, he might as well come to Australia to study 2 years cookery, apply for 485, and then after 4 or 5 years, they can apply for PR, which is really, really good. But what I'm suggesting just now was, instead of just letting them in, the Australian government says, no, you have to study, you have to spend some money, you have to contribute to the workforce, and then we grant you PR. So that's a sort of a concession. It's still better, a lot better than the treatment to other countries, including UK, the mother country, or even people from New Zealand. But for Hong Kong, is now historically Hong Kong is probably the most prioritized country in terms of migration, better than New Zealand.
Oh wow! So Jason 喺唔喺度？又試下再同你傾下廣東話，因為我想就同你呢個廣東話講多啲，咁所以喺錄音嘅時候咧就俾多啲係我唔係咩其實亦都係你上次所講嗰個就係話要喺嗰度讀一至即係有做頭先阿朱律師就所講嘅就係話喺香港做咗5年，譬如話係做廚嘅，咁然之後過到嚟，只不過係讀書讀1-2年到。咁就已經可以就已經留低就可以 apply 嗰個 visa 啦。咁嗰個 visa 就係5年嘅。
係啊，其實你呢個1-2年其實係你要喺呢邊讀書攞到呢邊嘅 certificate， 即係一般都係1到2年你就攞到 certificate， 你要攞到呢個 certificate 之後再去做嘢。咁你做咁我就你有做處嘅 certificate。
咁即係唔係淨係讀英文，即係讀廚都得嘅。咁喺呢頭呢2年裏邊，咁香港人
你要讀書，咁你
嚇，咁我頭呢2年裏邊，咁我想問翻就話，申請人係可唔可以讀書嘅時候又做嘢咧？
Yeah, I think that's going to be a question for me.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah, because I think you are asking about the work condition on the student visa, which is is pretty much a legal topic. I think I would be more a suitable person to address this particular topic.
Okay,
so
yes, please.
We have to be very careful in reading the visa condition. Whenever we have a visa granted, I think any other country would have the same, pretty much in the same vein. We would have something called visa condition. We have to be very careful about the visa condition. I don't think, because my wife studied in USA, I don't think USA gives any work permission to overseas students. Unlike that, in Australia, usually we have 20 hours work permission on each student visa holder. And during the study gaps, they can even work full-time. However, there is temporarily a unrestricted work permission on each student visa in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this policy will be reviewed in April. There is a great chance that it will be extended. If that's the case, that would mean any student visa holder from any country can work full-time in any industry after they come to Australia. Does that make sense?
Yep, so 唔好意思，朱律師，我就想用廣東話問翻，因為我想個錄音就比較多啲語言啦，唔好意思啊。咁即係話可以響頭2年讀書嘅時候，咁即係譬如話香港有個申請人佢做開廚嘅，咁佢就想過去澳洲就繼續做廚啦，但係就譬如話讀書就唔一定要讀英文語言就可以讀廚，咁亦都同時地係有21個星期有20個鐘頭係可以叫做 part time 係咪
？Yep.
OK， 咁即係話我可以叫做頭呢2年就叫做半工讀嚟叫做學下英文或者學下地方啊咁所有嘢，而每個星期都至少有20個鐘頭先啦，咁即係咪
？That's correct.
OK 得，咁然之後就可以2年之後咧。咁叫做學好咗少少叫英文啊或者咩成啦，咁之後咧就可以 apply 佢，咁即係申請嗰個visa 啦。
That's correct.
Okay.
However,
yep.
can I just
sure.
put forward? Yeah, there are two frustrations that I probably need to clarify to the applicants and potentially to agents in Hong Kong. Okay, so first of all, when we talk about this 485 visa, it is available to people who have studied in Australia for 2 years, right? That's what the policy says. However, that 2 years do not include English study. So I cannot, for example, study English for half a year and then study some other, course for 1.5 years and then apply for 485. If I need to study English, I need to study English in addition to the actual course. So, for example, if my English is not good enough for me to study Diploma of Hospitality Management, I will need to study English for half a year and then a 2-year Diploma of Hospitality course before I can apply for 485. Because 485 is constructed on a 2-year course except for English. That's the first question that I need to clarify. The second one is, if we look at this policy itself, it makes sense, right? Because it is almost a voice of Australian government that if you want to come to Australia to seek protection, I wouldn't use the term protection because it's not a protection visa, to seek a better life, put it this way, you need to contribute to the tuition, right? You need to contribute tuition first. You need to work first. Okay, that makes sense. However, if I apply for a student visa in the first place to come to Australia, you still need to satisfy the student visa requirement, to which the genuine temporary visa requirement, genuine temporary entry requirement is crucial to the success of application. So you will find a practitioner like myself would advise you to put down in a statement that, after a successful completion of the course, I wish to go back to Hong Kong to work because I can have secure a better job, a better salary, right? If you don't put that down, if you say, I would stay in Australia to apply for any other visa, this visa will be refused because it does not satisfy the genuine temporary visa requirement. However, after you come to Australia, due to change of circumstances, you can, of course, seek to extend your student visa or apply for 485. This is a question of law, not a question of fact. But we often found it frustration because we don't want client to think we tell them to lie. Does that make sense?
Okay, I see that. So applicant should think about the further terms of how to apply for that visa.
Correct. For each and every visa, we need to satisfy the requirement set out in Australian Migration Regulations 1994. So we cannot apply for this visa while claiming to satisfy the next visa. So right.
所以容許我咁講，即係申請做呢個叫學生簽證嘅時候，就要考慮埋即係要個將來個發展，所以就要攞定個意向下一步你係想點樣做嘅，所以就咁即係當申請嘅時候就已經要話咗俾人哋知，就係話我係會有咩打算或者有咩方向去諗。
That's almost contrary to what I just suggested.
OK， 係啦 ，OK， 得啦，明白啦。咁呢個就係叫做485號485嗰個叫做 Skill Migration Visa 啦。
Correct.
OK，
correct.
嚇。咁仲有冇其他方案可以俾到香港人有其他選擇呢？
Yeah. So the next one, maybe we talk a bit about.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Actually, I do have a question about the student visa.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting. So does that mean that I know that because there are lots of protesters in Hong Kong, they are really young. They might not even be high school graduates. Are they able to apply for the student visa and study for certificates, for example?
I think you accidentally muted yourself.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah. But
yeah.
Not the last few sentences.
I was saying because lots of protesters in Hong Kong, they're really young and they may not even be high school graduates. So are they able to apply for the student visa and let's say take a certificate in Australia, for example?
That's a good question. Traditionally, Australia has a minimum age for different countries. For example, I'll just use China for example. The minimum age used to be 18, and it was lowered to 10, and then was lowered to 6. For Hong Kong, you might as well apply. However, you must be very careful. You can apply to come to Australia to study even high school, but the years you spend in high school will not be counted towards the requirement for 485 visa. So if you want to satisfy the 485 visa in particular, you need to study minimum diploma or a bachelor's degree. So you have to study a diploma of hospitality or diploma of even a plumbing or electrician, or you can come here to study a bachelor's degree, or you can come here to study master's degree. But for really young people in high school, unless they have sufficient fund to let them come to Australia to study high school followed by diploma, then it will really be costly and lengthy for them to migrate. Unless they claim after they come to Australia, they face potential harm to be done by the Hong Kong or Chinese government, then they can probably seek to the option of protection visa, which we will discuss later. But in terms of skill migration, for people who have who are still in Zhong, like Form 5 or
Right, Form 5.
right, it's really hard.
I understand. Thank you so much.
No problem. Shall I go? Yeah, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I will just move to the working visa just to give a browse over it, and then we will talk about the protection visa. All right. So, in terms of working visa, it is designed for people with functional English. When I say functional English, the IELTS must be 5, with minimum 4.5 in each band, with more than 2 years closely relevant work experience, and with a sponsor employer in Australia. So for people from other countries, again, UK, Brazil, China, they can only work to the terms of this visa. For example, if the visa is granted to a Chinese worker for 2 years, they can only work for 2 years, and they can extend the visa, but they cannot apply for PR. But for people from Hong Kong, if they obtain this working visa, it will be granted to them for 5 years, and then after 4 years, they can apply for PR. So this is for skilled worker. Again, it has a Hong Kong stream, which is a lot easier and more straightforward than people from other countries. But this is designed for people who have functional English, work experience, and an Australian employer. Any questions regarding this visa scheme?
Hi, Rick.
Yep, Jason.
Yeah, so just wondering, for this visa, is there any difference for the regional area and the metropolitan area?
Yeah.
Just like the working period.
Okay. The requirement is the same. The set of requirement is the same. It will make a huge difference for people from other countries, other areas other than Hong Kong. Okay, so for example, if you claim to be a cook, if you work in metropolitan areas such as Sydney and Melbourne, you might as well just get a 2-year working visa and extendable for another 2 years. If it's in regional area, then you can say Central Coast, then you can apply for PR straight away under the 187 visa scheme. However, for people from Hong Kong, it doesn't make much difference, because whether you go to metropolitan or go to regional, you will still get a 5-year visa, a lot longer than other visa holders, and then you can still apply for PR. So it doesn't really make much difference. It's about your own qualification, your work experience, and if you can secure an Australian employment opportunity.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the working visa? I think it's pretty much tailored for a particular group of people who are skilled, talented, with solid work experience. I've done quite a few, Hong Kong chefs, cooks, and what else? Hairdressers, I've done some, and also engineers. Yes, engineers.
即係你都曾經試過幫一啲香港過嚟嘅廚師啦、髮型師啦，甚至乎一啲工程師啊，咁樣都係用呢一個方法，就係話過到嚟用呢個叫 working visa 係咪
？Correct.
OK， 咁有冇啲除咗佢哋咁即係叫有就業嘅英語之外啦，咁仲冇其他一啲比較為 會幫到手嘅條件呢？
2 years work experience.
2年，即係2年同埋有嗰一方面嘅專業知識，當然係咁，即係譬如話識得嘅，咁會唔會有機會佢哋會嚟考你啊，或者即係面試嘅時候，即係會去見個移民官嘅時候啊，淨係對答嘅啫，就唔需要需唔需要有啲咩證明喺香港？譬如我做過呢行，咁我要證明俾人睇，我係個廚師咁樣咧。
Yeah. The chance of a personal interview for visa application is very slim. In fact, I couldn't even remember when was any of my clients was interviewed by any particular immigration officers. It's very rare. But in terms of evidence, we usually advise our client, as per Migration Regulations 1994, to prepare employment evidences as such: employment contract, employment reference, which I will draft for them, the payment, the pay slips, or taxation documents, superannuation, and any in Australia they would have a PAYG summary, but in Hong Kong probably not. It is very rare for any Hong Kong worker to have all these documents in hand, and it's very, very, very rare for the Australian government to scrutinize over all of them. But we advise them as such, and they can give us as many as possible.
我諗即係佢哋好少會話逐樣睇晒，但係就叫佢就咁即係，如果申請人係想用呢一啲途徑嘅話，就有個文件就好啲。
Yeah.
OK。咁呢一個係咪就係叫做482、482號咧
481。
呢個481。
No. This is 482。
482依個就係啦，因為上個星期都唔係上個星期，幾個星期前同 Jason 傾過嘅時候，佢都係講482同485，依個就叫485，就叫 Working Visa。OK 得，咁仲有冇其他方法，譬如話可以移民方便啲香港人移民過去嘅咧？
Yeah. So apart from 482 and 485, then of course there will be this business and investment visa. Traditionally, business and investment visa is very popular in Hong Kong because we all know Hong Kong is the business hub of Asia, and we've got lots of talented business operators and wealthy people. So if they are relatively wealthy, if they have personal assets over 2.5 million Australian dollars or even 5, then they can have a personal discussion with us in terms of the availability for business and investment visa. Okay, but I think we won't spend too much time on this topic because we mainly talk about the skilled and skilled visa, temporary or permanent. You know what? I think we can touch base on the protection visa. I think there were a few questions in relation to the protection safe haven visa. I think we should talk about it because there are lots of myths about it. There are lots of misunderstandings about protection visa, and also there are lots of scams initiated by this idea. I think I should clarify the topic a bit so that people, at least they have some first-hand information before they choose to do so. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yes, please.
Right. So when the Australian government announced its intention to protect people from Hong Kong, automatically any practitioner like myself would relate this option to protection visa. Protection visa is not new. It's been there for a long, long time. It's designed to protect people suffering from political harms, economic frustration from all over the world. So, for example, when the Australian government protected lots of people in the Gulf War period, Gulf War in 1990s, and also the Vietnam War in 1970s, right? So there is a large Vietnamese and Middle Eastern community in Australia, just because the government fulfilled its obligation to protect them during the wartime. So this is similar, but not exactly the same. So when the Australian government made its announcement last year, no, the year before last, we thought they would open the border to Hong Kong people and grant them the safe haven protection visa. However, the immigration minister, Alex Hawke, immediately made an announcement saying, no, we're not going to do so. Well, our main purpose is to attract talented and wealthy people. So we're not going to give them automatically protection visa. I think the first reason is because there is still lots of cooperation with Chinese government, and I do not want to provoke Chinese government in this aspect. And secondly, it is very difficult to distinguish, right? Even for me, I can understand Cantonese, I can understand Mandarin, but sometimes I have different voices. Does that make sense, right? So we practice what the law is. We do not practice what the law should be. So the current legal vehicle for us is that once a Hong Kong passport holder arrives in Australia, okay, I'm talking about after they arrive in Australia, not before they come, because that doesn't make sense. After they come to Australia, they can seek professional opinion with regard to their potential harms. For protection visa, the main legislation is set out in section 36, bracket 2, bracket AA, bracket, in the Migration Act 1958. So the main criteria is you have to suffer from harms done by the government, and there is nowhere you can escape to, and you need Australian government to protect you under the Geneva Convention obligations. So with this one, we need lots of evidences. You can't claim, for example, if you just hate China, that doesn't work. If you just hate Russia, it doesn't work. You have to suffer from substantial harm. How to satisfy this legal element of substantial harm is about a construction. But definitely, if you simply took part in one street demonstration, had some clash with the Hong Kong police, that doesn't really qualify. We have to be more materialized in that aspect. Does that make sense? Any questions?
咁若果比如話我係有呢個創傷後遺症 PTSD， 咁呢個算唔算係一個有力證據話我響嗰一年抗爭嘅時候受到傷呢？
Yeah, that makes sense. If you have post-traumatic stress disorder, right, and if especially accompanied by a medical certificate or psychological report, that makes sense. But at this stage, right, because the assessment on protection visa is very lengthy. If a gentleman A comes to Australia and had a meeting with me saying, Reid, I want to apply for protection visa. It takes me about at least a month or two to assess the suitability. And then we will lodge the application. The application will be in the department for 2 years. Of course, during that 2 years, he would have work permission, he would have Medicare, he would have legal status. He can travel to Hong Kong and come back. But then it will take the government 2 years to assess and to weigh on the ground whether he or she satisfies this requirement. After that, 90% of protection visa application will be refused in the first instance. And then we will take the case to tribunal, and we will have a personal chat with the tribunal members, whether or not you qualify Section 36 of Migration Act. If it still doesn't work, we might need to take the case to the minister in person, which is called ministerial intervention. I would say in terms of in terms of affordability, when it comes to time and finance, study might be a better option because it's very difficult to construct. It's not like a wartime. It's not like Ukraine or the Gulf War where people are under the menace of, gun bullets. It is still a bit vague in that respect. As much as I want to help you, we need to have lots of evidences, not just a warning, not just a street demonstration. We need something more than that.
咁亦即係話，若果要以抗爭之後有創傷後遺症，呢一個叫Safe Haven 或者 Protection Visa 啦。咁但係呢一個申請都要2年嘅時候，正如你所講啦，咁嗰個 Skill Migration 450都可以做到2年時間，話都係容易好多嘅，只不過係你有冇呢個能力去嗰2年做 part time 又讀書。又唔可以讀英文，即係唔好讀英文，讀其他，譬如話你做開廚師嘅就做翻廚師，讀廚師嗰啲嘢啦。咁所以就即係通常你又講到就係話會有一半或以上，通常都會係reject 嘅，會推翻出嚟嘅。咁若然再要去到嗰個咩minister 嗰度去到係咪？去
intervention，
係啦，再複核嘅時候，咁個機會又細啲，又拖耐啲，所以所以你又話450 skill migration 嗰個反而即係老實講容易得嚟，又揾到食添。
Well, I would not categorize any method of migration as easy or short, right? Easy or shortcut. I would say whether or not this protection visa is suitable depends on personal situation. For example, if I have had some really bad experience with the government, which makes me fear to go to stay in Hong Kong, firstly. Secondly, I don't have any money, right? I don't have any money to study. I don't have any money to invest. And thirdly, I want to try my luck. I want to come to Australia to see if it works. If it doesn't work, I'll come back to Hong Kong happily. Then you can consider protection visa. But if you are determined, if you are selling your properties, if you are relocating your children to Australia, if you would kill yourself if the Australian government doesn't protect you, do not try protection visa because it doesn't work. The Australian government has made it very clear that it does not intend to provide protection visa to people from Hong Kong. And I'm really surprised when I heard some of my colleagues, okay, not colleagues in my firm, but colleagues in the industry, made this announcement to people from Hong Kong, come to me, just pay me some money, I'll get you protection visa, it's really easy, we have the obligation to protect you. No, that's not. So far, I've seen very few Hong Kong people securing protection visa. That's why I'm very reluctant to enter into a retainer agreement just because they have very, very superficial disagreement with the government in terms of national security, or even a PTSD, because PTSD is largely a psychiatric disorder, and you might not be receiving ongoing treatment. Yeah, put it this way. Yeah.
即係其實如果你要用 PTSD 嚟到去申請呢個 visa， 老實講，咁即係要證明自己係真係有呢個創傷後遺症，再去申請嘅話，老實講，淨係去證明自己嗰度個手續都唔簡單嘅喎，老實講。
Yeah, and the PTSD has to be a result of any particular mistreatment or torture, including psychological torture, done by the government or by the police or by secret police or whatever. It cannot just be for example, I give you an example. If I have gone to the street and I've seen people fighting each other and I saw my friend, seriously injured, and of course I would have PTSD. But whether that PTSD can be a ground of protection visa application, I doubt. I wouldn't say it doesn't work. I just don't want to encourage my client to sell their house, relocate the whole family to apply for protection visa, wait for 2 years, and then had a dispute with me, say, Reid, you should have told me it doesn't work. Refund me. It happens. It could happen like that.
咁嗱，我就想問翻阿朱律師你響你話都有成功嘅個案例子，咁比起失敗例子個有幾多？你係知道成功同失敗嘅比例係幾多度咧
？This policy itself is problematic. This policy only came into being in 2020, right? So in 2020, the world entered into a pandemic period. Some countries, including Australia, we had lockdown, right? So the reason I say that, people from Hong Kong who took advantage of this policy were largely people in Australia who have never been back during the last 5 or 10 decades. They've never seen this demonstration. People who fought for their democracy were people in Hong Kong who've never been to Australia in the last 5 years. So we've got inquiries in Australia from Hong Kong students who've never been back in the last 5 years, claiming to be a refugee or someone who need protection. Do you think that will work? I think it will be very hard to work, right? Because all they have done is probably they posted some post on their Instagram or Facebook, and then based on that they say, oh, I can't go back. Whether or not Australian government will take that into consideration is very, very, very doubtful. So for their cousins or classmates who went to the street, who fought with the police, they couldn't come to Australia, and they couldn't apply for this visa. So really, in 2020, the first group of people who apply for protection visa based on Hong Kong democratic movement have never had a result yet, not even one of them. Because this visa takes at least 2 years to finalize. And the visa processing time is largely delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm not really discouraging people to take this method. I'm just saying we have to think, analyze, and sit down with a real migration practitioner rather than some overseas agent or just because of some misrepresentation.
我諗即其實若果以香港19年抗爭運動用呢一個理由去澳洲申請呢一個叫safe haven 啦，或者叫 protection 嘅申請啦，其實係仲未有一個19年抗爭運動而成功申請係仲未有嘅。
No, I would doubt if there is any, because firstly, it's only in 2019, and most of those people never came to Australia because the pandemic started, the border was closed. Right? I'm being very realistic. I've never seen any of them. Secondly, if a Hong Kong passport holder applies for protection visa, right? You would be in the same category as people from China who claim to be a Falun Gong, right?
Falun Gong, 係。
Yeah, Falun Gong, or someone from other countries claiming, for example, from Indonesia claiming to be a victim of the anti-Chinese movement, right? In Jakarta, Chinese people were slaughtered in 1990s, right? Remember?
係有。
Yeah, so you would not be treated differently. They would not take you out because, hey, look, there's a Hong Kong application. We need to prioritize this. No, they won't do that. If you apply for protection visa, you are in the same status as a Chinese passport holder or Indonesian passport holder. You have no special treatment.
所以
That's the policy.
就算香港有抗爭者想用呢一個 safe haven，老實講，亦即係話呢個 safe haven 唔係淨係俾香港人，亦係指全世界嘅唔同地方嘅受到政治迫害嘅人都係擺同一條隊嘅。
Correct.
哦，咁呢條隊亦都唔係短嘅喎。嚇，係你講，請講。
I'll just give you one example. If, say, for example, if gentleman A, as a then Hong Kong University student, set up barricade to stop police from entering the campus, arrested by police, tortured by the police, prosecuted by the police, had currently in bail, receiving multiple warnings from the police or government saying, you better be careful, otherwise we'll kill you and torture your family. Then that will work. That will work.
我要係去到真係上過街抗爭過，而又俾人哋係逮捕咗，再之後保釋嘅時候，仲會俾人恐嚇嘅，咁先至可以做到呢個申請。但係呢個申請亦都要同世界其他嘅人去排同一條隊。未有武漢肺炎之前，亦都要等2年，而家就更加唔止添。所以呢一個老實講，時間或者其他考慮上加埋都唔係一個好好嘅方法。
Correct. For example, if say for example, if my cousin in China said, you know what, I support Hong Kong democratic movement, and as a result, he was arrested or tortured or whatever. He holds a Chinese passport, apply for protection visa, he would be treated identically as Hong Kong applicants. There wouldn't be much difference. However, doesn't matter he supports Chinese government or Hong Kong young Hong Kong people. If he applies to study in Australia, he would be in different streams, because doesn't matter if he supports or not, the Hong Kong passport holder will automatically be able to treat it differently, apply for PR at later stage, but they can't. So in terms of protection visa, there is no special treatment, there is no special stream. That's why many Hong Kong people are not really happy about the Australian government and UK government when they announced this, because it started as the intention to protect Hong Kong people, ending up to be a distorted skilled migration and investment visa. Does that make sense? It doesn't really distinguish democratic or anti-democratic people. It doesn't distinguish.
咁即係冇響一個地理上，譬如話你係香港就有啲優勢，冇呢樣嘢讓人政治庇護嘅話，佢就全世界都睇齊嘅，就同一條隊嘅。
Yeah.
所以喺呢方面就唔係話有啲乜嘢嘅方便響度，就令到香港嘅抗爭就特別快啲，反而調翻轉頭就若然你係想繼續讀書啊做嘢嘅話咧，就反而用頭先你所講嘅485同埋482呢兩個 skill migration 或者叫 working visa 就反而仲可以實際啲可以有個效果出嚟。
That is correct. I mean, for a qualified protection visa, for me to consolidate the evidence, it would cost, at least 10,000 Australian dollars. I would be happy to take the job. And for skill migration, if clients are qualified, I'd probably just charge $5,000 or something. I can make more, but I can't do so because there is no such vehicle. There is no such legislation for me to rely on to give the convenience to Hong Kong people. I can't mislead people to the effect that they can take advantage of the safe haven protection thingo to apply. There is no such thing.
OK.
Yeah.
大娟啊，其實即係話，如果要揾 special treatment 咧，即係話特別對待咧，咁你都係485或者482呢啲，佢會有專門 Hong Kong stream 咁去分開嘅，其他嗰啲就未必有啦。
我諗即係若然係話要用嗰個 safe haven 或者 protection 嗰個咧，老實講就冇分開嘅情況嘅，就全世界都係同一條隊嘅啫。但係若然你用485或者482就會有 Hong Kong Stream 呢一個優惠喺嗰度，就令到佢嗰個移民嘅方法就可以快脆啲，或者叫方便啲。
That's exactly correct.
係簡單好多。
係簡單好多添。
That's exactly correct. A lot easier.
OK。我暫時冇問題。
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I want to cover today. Just as a general introduction of the visa options for people from Hong Kong. Some of you might be interested, some of you might be disappointed, but I have relied on the regulations and legislations to date to clarify some of the myths you might have. This is not commercial, but if you do have individual questions, if you want me to assess you individually or give you a particular advice, then maybe get in touch with the host and we can get in touch in person. But this does not constitute any substantial legal advice. So you will be at your own risk if you rely on it. But in general, that's all I want to discuss today. Any questions, guys?
我都有些少問題嘅，咁樣咧就係嗱，咁樣我聽到咧就係都係攞 student visa 啦，同埋工作嘅簽證咧會比較係着數啲。如果我咁樣講嘅話，咁如果即係我都係想喺一個抗爭者個角度去問啦。咁譬如有啲即係其實而家呢個 gap 係會係可能係中學畢業咁，然後咧攞 student visa 去讀一個 diploma 又好，或讀一個 degree 又好，咁其實會對一啲比較年輕啲嘅抗爭者呢一方面係會着數少少，可唔可以咁問咧？Okay, I'm going to ask it in English. So I'm going to ask in the perspective of the protesters. So for young protesters, it'll be easier for them to actually apply for a student visa once they are high school graduates. Am I correct?
After high school, that's correct.
Okay, yeah, and then if they're somewhat older or they don't have or they're not even high school graduates, but they're over 18, then they might want to consider the working visa. Is that right?
Well, I think people can consider student visa all the way from diploma to postgraduate program, regardless of their age, all the way until I think 35, preferably. If someone's over 35, I would say your risk of being of your chance of being refused a student visa is higher than people who are younger, because the Australian government would really look at how old you are when you come here to study. We usually advise our client to be extra careful if they are over 35. But under 35, they can consider a range of courses all the way from diploma, undergraduate, which is bachelor's degree, and postgraduate, which is master's degree.
Awesome, yeah, that's very clear. Thank you so much. 咁我都用翻中文講一次啊，好嘛？咁其實咧就係如果都係想consider 翻出去澳洲嘅時候咧，咁其實咧可能都係揀翻student visa 啦。咁其實 student visa 咧都係由18至35歲，其實都係會比較好少少。可唔可以咁樣講咧
？Yeah.
Yep, awesome. Thank you so much.
That's correct. That's correct.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
咁想問下，就下邊有冇朋友對於澳洲依個移民嘅有基本上有咩問題啊？可以若果係有私人嘅問題嘅話，就麻煩就我哋會再 post 朱律師個聯絡方法，但係至少係喺呢度有冇人有呢啲基本或者原則上嘅問題呢？ OK，咁朱律師咁 若然朋友們有事情想揾你嘅，可唔可以喺 Clubhouse 度揾到你呢？就係咪用呢一個
Yes, for sure.
呢一個Reid Zhu 呢個地方度可以同你直接同你傾。
Yeah.
OK.
For sure.
嚇咁其他 moderator 或者有冇其他嘢想補充嘅？
我諗今次雖然譬如下邊嘅朋友唔係好多啦，咁但係咧我哋咧都會擺翻喺 YouTube 度啦。咁我諗我都要喺update 翻少少，即係我會喺翻嗰個我哋嘅 club 嗰度咧 post 翻條 YouTube link 咧，咁等有啲有需要嘅朋友可以睇到。因為咧而家喺香港嘅時候咧，我諗都係比較早咧。咁係啦，咁我都會 update 翻啦，咁 post 翻條 link 喺個房嗰度，咁之後spread 翻出去啦，好唔好啊？
仲有就係想聯絡阿朱律師咧，可以入嚟獅子山下啦。我會將阿朱律師嘅聯絡點樣揾朱律師可以直接係交俾有需要聯絡阿朱律師嘅朋友
嘅。咁就好多謝朱律師喺度同我哋分享下呢一個澳洲移民法呢一個經驗分享啦。咁好老實，真係我哋好開心今日有一個一個註冊係咪叫註冊律師啊？叫做係咪咁講啊？我都唔知點樣形容，真係上次 Jason 就都好想同我哋分享，但係鑑於因為我哋呢個係一個公開嘅平台，咁因為若果講咗一啲唔知道應該唔應該講啦，咁就所以就麻煩到阿朱律師今日就上嚟同我哋再解釋啦。咁若然大家冇問題嘅，咁我最後就賣多次廣告。我哋呢一個平台係叫 Hong Kong Democracy Movement 香港民主運動。我哋通常都係喺獅子山下 Thomas 間房嗰度咧，就會喺度傾閒偈嘅。但係若然大家有咩朋友係想冇聯絡嘅，唔記得聯絡或者唔記得 follow 我哋嘅，咁去獅子山下又得，或者 follow Hong Kong Democracy Movement 又得，或者直接follow 朱律師又得，所以就有好多種方法都得嘅嚇。咁我哋就會將Thomas 呢就會將呢一個成個聲帶俾阿 Thomas 剪接咗之後咧，就 po 上網噶啦。咁我哋遲啲就會再係咪 Thomas 我問係咪擺翻向獅子山下嗰個網嗰度㗎？
係，我會即係喺獅子山下嘅網嗰度，同埋即係 YouTube 嗰度㗎。咁變咗可以，如果有興趣嘅朋友咧，佢自己可以再聽翻，或者 refer 佢啲朋友再可以喺 YouTube 嗰度聽到㗎。我哋係純粹係幫助所有香港嘅朋友㗎。
係啦，我哋就係我哋有呢個獅子山下平台啦，又有 Hong Kong Democracy Movement 啦，同埋呢個 Hong Kong Voice 幾個平台都會有聯絡嘅。咁我哋就再次多謝阿朱律師喺度同我哋分享佢嘅經驗同埋佢哋嘅知識啦，亦都好多謝阿 Jason 介紹朱律師俾我哋啦。咁大家朋友做咩問題？冇問題嘅話，咁我就 close room 啦。OK。
係咯，我都好想再多謝一次 Jason 同埋朱律師啦。咁同埋咧 Hong Kong Democracy Movement 即係會一個禮拜，我哋應該會開到一次房，咁就係關於唔同嘅專題啦。我哋會揾翻，譬如上次講緊嘅就係一啲香港嘅防疫政策嘅問題啦，今次就講緊澳洲嘅移民法啦咁樣。咁嚟緊下個禮拜應該都會開到一次房，咁即係話。
嗱，咁呢個我哋再會再商量，然之後就會 post 響會再開房啦。所以記住嗱，得閒嘅就follow 我哋 Hong Kong Democracy Movement 就冇問題嘅。咁我就閂房啦。OK， 好多謝晒。
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.